What if I told you that the serene and humble figure of Padre Pio, a man revered as a Catholic saint, was also a warrior on a battlefield most people cannot even see? Behind the prayers, the miracles, and the stigmata, there was a relentless hidden battle against forces of darkness, an unyielding confrontation with demons that sought to break his spirit. His life wasn't just a testament to holiness. It was a living blueprint of what it means to stand firm in the face of pure evil. This isn't just a story. It's a revelation, a reminder of that spiritual warfare is real, and it doesn't just happen to saints. It happens to you and me every single day. Whether you realize it or not, the invisible realm is at play in your life. Padre Pio understood this better than most, and he faced it head-on with faith and prayer as his weapons. His struggles weren't simply for his own soul. They were a beacon, lighting the way for anyone who dares to confront the forces of darkness. You see, demonic attacks aren't the stuff of myths or Hollywood movies. Padre Pio experienced them in ways that would make the strongest among us tremble. Chairs flying across the room, disembodied voices mocking his prayers, and even physical injuries inflicted by unseen hands. Yet he stood unshaken, knowing that his victory lay not in fear, but in unwavering trust in God. Isn't that the kind of strength we all long for in our own battles? Today, we'll uncover the profound religious mysteries behind Padre Pio's life and his extraordinary supernatural encounters. But more than that, we'll explore what his story means for you, how you could draw from his lessons to protect your soul, strengthen your faith, and face your own hidden struggles with the same courage. So stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you won't just know more about Padre Pio, you'll understand what it means to win the battles you cannot see. To understand the depth of Padre Pio's hidden battle with demons, we first need to look at who he was, a man whose extraordinary life made him one of the most revered figures in Christian spirituality. Born Francesco Forgione in 1887 in a small Italian village, Padre Pio grew up in humble surroundings but with a profound sense of faith. From an early age, he experienced visions of both angels and demons, a rare glimpse into the supernatural encounters that would define his life. Even as a young boy, he spoke of feeling called to something greater, something far beyond this world. Padre Pio became a Capuchin friar at the age of 15 and was later ordained as a priest. His life, however, was far from ordinary. He bore the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, for over 50 years, a mystery that baffled scientists and inspired millions. But these marks of divine connection came at a price. As much as Padre Pio was blessed with miraculous gifts, he was also a target of demonic attacks, enduring physical and spiritual torment that few could comprehend. These weren't symbolic struggles. They were visceral, undeniable battles fought in the realm of the unseen. Yet, through it all, Padre Pio's response was always the same: unwavering faith and prayer. He believed that every struggle, no matter how dark, was an opportunity to grow closer to God. His life was a living testament to the power of resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. By looking at his life, we don't just see a saint. We see a warrior, a man who proved that even the fiercest spiritual warfare could be overcome with trust and divine strength. Padre Pio's life was a battlefield, but not the kind fought with swords or armies. His was a hidden battle, one that unfolded in the realm of the unseen. He often spoke about the relentless demonic attacks he endured, describing them as moments of intense darkness that tested his faith to its core. These weren't metaphorical struggles. They were physical, spiritual, and deeply personal confrontations with forces of evil. Many nights, his fellow friars would hear loud crashes coming from his room, furniture thrown, heavy footsteps, and guttural voices that defied explanation. What would explain such events other than an unrelenting spiritual warfare? One of the most infamous episodes involved Padre Pio, waking up to the sensation of being beaten by invisible forces. He later recounted how he could feel the blows as if they were from a human hand, leaving him bruised and weakened. Despite this, he never gave in to fear. Instead, he would clutch his rosary and pray with a ferocity that could only come from someone who knew that victory wasn't physical but spiritual. These supernatural encounters served as a stark reminder of the battle between good and evil, a battle that Padre Pio believed wasn't unique to him, but something that all believers face in their own lives. What made these attacks even more compelling was Padre Pio's calm yet resolute response. He would later tell those who sought his counsel, "The devil is like a rabid dog tied to a chain. He can bark, he can lunge, but he can only harm you if you get too close." This profound metaphor revealed his unshakable perspective on faith and prayer. They were not just defenses but weapons that could repel even the most insidious of enemies. Imagine that, the power to stand firm against overwhelming darkness, simply by choosing faith over fear. The Church, initially skeptical, conducted numerous investigations into his experiences. Witness accounts confirmed the eerie phenomena surrounding him, further solidifying Padre Pio's reputation as a man deeply entrenched in Christian spirituality. But it wasn't just the battles he fought that mattered. It was the way he fought them. With every attack, Padre Pio turned his gaze heavenward, refusing to engage with the darkness on its own terms. His focus remained on God, and this unwavering commitment served as his greatest strength. So, what does this mean for you? If you've ever felt overwhelmed by unseen forces, whether it's fear, doubt, or a sense of despair, Padre Pio's story is a reminder that you too can fight back. It's not about being fearless, it's about being faithful. Like Padre Pio, your battles aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities to grow stronger in your own faith. Start by arming yourself with prayer, surrounding yourself with spiritual support, and trusting that no matter how fierce the storm, there is always light waiting to break through. Padre Pio's encounters with evil forces were not random acts of oppression. They were part of a larger spiritual narrative. He believed that these hidden battles were tests, not punishments, designed to refine his soul and bring him closer to God. In his view, every confrontation with darkness was an opportunity to strengthen his faith and prove his unwavering devotion. This is a profound lesson for us all. The struggles we face, whether seen or unseen, are often the very tools that shape our character and prepare us for something greater. What made Padre Pio's response so extraordinary was his refusal to see himself as a victim. He didn't wallow in self-pity or seek escape. Instead, he leaned into the battle with the full force of his faith and prayer, viewing them as his most powerful weapons. To him, prayer wasn't just a daily ritual. It was a lifeline, a shield, and a sword all at once. He would often say, "Pray, hope, and don't worry." Worry is useless. God is merciful and will hear your prayer. Imagine facing overwhelming fear or doubt with this kind of mindset. How much more resilient could we become? But Padre Pio didn't stop at prayer alone. He understood the importance of active participation in one's spiritual growth. He encouraged confession as a way to cleanse the soul and fortify it against the temptations of the enemy. He advised fasting, not as a punishment but as a form of spiritual discipline that sharpened the mind and spirit. For those seeking practical steps, think about this. Could you dedicate even a few minutes each day to prayer or reflection? Could you identify one habit or distraction in your life and replace it with something that nourishes your spirit? These small actions, repeated consistently, can build a fortress of faith that's hard to penetrate. One of the most striking aspects of Padre Pio's teachings was his belief in the communal power of prayer. He often said that when people pray together, their strength multiplies. This wasn't just theory, it was something he lived by, frequently calling for group prayers and encouraging others to pray the rosary. If you've ever felt isolated in your spiritual journey, consider finding a community, whether it's a prayer group, a church, or even an online gathering. There's immense power in knowing you're not fighting your battles alone. And what about the times when the battles feel too overwhelming? Padre Pio had an answer for that too. He often spoke of surrender, not to the enemy, but to God. He believed that true strength comes not from our own abilities, but from trusting completely in divine providence. This is where his greatest victory lay, in recognizing that while the devil might attack, God's power is infinitely greater. It's a lesson as relevant today as it was during Padre Pio's lifetime. When faced with challenges that seem insurmountable, pause and ask yourself, are you trying to fight this battle alone, or are you inviting God to fight it with you? What Padre Pio taught through his battles is that the spiritual life isn't about avoiding conflict but learning how to navigate it with courage and grace. His experiences remind us that every struggle is an opportunity to draw closer to God, to rely less on our own strength and more on divine guidance. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by fear, doubt, or even forces you can't explain, remember Padre Pio's example. Arm yourself with prayer, surround yourself with supportive people, and trust that the light will always overcome the darkness. Padre Pio's battles weren't confined to his lifetime. His life, his words, and his struggles carry a prophetic weight that echoes into the modern world. He often spoke of the devil's increasing influence over humanity, warning that as faith grows weaker, the forces of darkness grow bolder. These warnings aren't just relics of a bygone era, they are strikingly relevant today. In a world inundated with distractions, conflicts, and moral ambiguity, It's easy to see how spiritual warfare has shifted but never disappeared. Consider this. How often do we face subtle, unseen battles in our daily lives? It may not look like the dramatic demonic attacks that Padre Pio endured, but the devil's tactics have evolved. Fear, doubt, division, and despair. These are the weapons of modern spiritual conflict. Padre Pio believed that these battles begin in the mind and the heart, often disguised as thoughts of inadequacy, hopelessness, or the temptation to stray from our values. His prophetic insight was that these moments are not just personal struggles. They are part of a larger hidden battle for our souls. Padre Pio often reminded his followers that their greatest defense lay in their connection to God. He emphasized the importance of prayer as a shield against these subtle attacks, particularly the rosary, which he called his weapon. For those unfamiliar, the rosary is a meditative prayer that combines scripture and reflection, offering a way to center the mind and fortify the spirit. In today's fast-paced world, this practice is more relevant than ever. Imagine taking just 15 minutes a day to focus your thoughts, reconnect with your faith, and silence the chaos around you. It's not just a ritual, it's a form of resistance against the forces that seek to undermine your peace. But Padre Pio's message wasn't just about defense, it was also about action. He urged believers to be vigilant, to recognize the signs of spiritual decay in themselves and their communities, and to act as beacons of light in a darkening world. For example, he warned about the dangers of apathy, saying that indifference is one of the devil's most powerful tools. This resonates deeply in our era, where distraction and complacency often replace genuine connection and purpose. To counter this, Padre Pio encouraged acts of kindness, service, and deep reflection as ways to strengthen both individual and communal faith. His prophetic warnings also touched on the broader spiritual state of the world. Padre Pio believed that the increasing rejection of God would lead to turmoil, not because of divine punishment, but because separation from the Creator inherently leads to chaos. He once said, "The world will not find peace until it returns to God." These words feel hauntingly applicable to our times, as we witness global unrest, environmental crises, and widespread disillusionment. The solution, Padre Pio insisted, begins with each of us choosing to recenter our lives on faith and prayer. For modern audiences, his message is both a challenge and a comfort. It's a challenge because it calls us to take responsibility for our spiritual health, to recognize that spiritual warfare is real and requires intentional effort to overcome. But it's also a comfort, reminding us that we are not alone. Just as Padre Pio relied on God's strength to face his most terrifying battles, so too can we find solace and courage in the divine. Perhaps the most profound part of Padre Pio's prophecy is its simplicity. He didn't offer elaborate theological arguments or complicated practices. Instead, he gave us practical tools: prayer, reflection, community, and trust in God. These are things anyone can do, regardless of their circumstances. In a world that often feels overwhelming, Padre Pio's message is a reminder that even the smallest acts of faith can have immense power. As you navigate your own life, consider what lessons you can take from Padre Pio. Are there battles you've been avoiding or dismissing as unimportant? Are there areas where fear or doubt have taken root? By embracing the tools Padre Pio left us, you can face these challenges with strength and grace. His life wasn't just a story of survival. It was a blueprint for victory in the most important battle of all, the battle for your soul. As we reach the end of this journey into Padre Pio's hidden battle with demons, one thing becomes clear: his life wasn't just an extraordinary story. It was a call to action for all of us. Padre Pio's struggles remind us that we're not spectators in this world. We're participants in a vast, unseen war between good and evil. And while our battles may not be as visible or intense as his, they are no less significant. Each of us is called to face our own challenges with the same courage and conviction that Padre Pio demonstrated. But here's the key takeaway: you don't need to be a saint to fight and win these battles. Padre Pio showed us that the tools are within everyone's reach: faith and prayer, consistent reflection, and a commitment to living with purpose. He didn't rely on his strength alone, and neither should you. If there's one thing to remember from this, it's that surrendering your fears to God and trusting in His plan is the most powerful act of resistance against darkness. So, what can you do starting today? Begin with prayer, not just words spoken out of routine, but heartfelt communication with God. If you're unsure where to start, consider the Rosary, which Padre Pio himself called the ultimate weapon. Take 10 or 15 minutes to sit in quiet reflection, asking for strength, clarity, and protection. If you've been carrying fears or doubts, lay them down in prayer. Padre Pio believed that every prayer, no matter how small, has the power to move mountains. Next, surround yourself with a spiritual community. Find people who inspire you to grow, who remind you of the strength that comes from walking this journey together. If you can't find a group in person, look for online communities or forums where you can connect with others seeking the same path. The strength of collective prayer and support can be a game changer, especially when you feel overwhelmed by the battles in your life. And don't forget to act. As Padre Pio emphasized, faith without action is hollow. Look for opportunities to bring light into the lives of others, whether it's through acts of kindness, sharing your faith, or simply being a source of encouragement to those who are struggling. These small acts ripple outward, creating waves of positivity that counteract the negativity in the world. Finally, remember that you're not alone. Just as Padre Pio relied on God to sustain him through the darkest nights, so too can you draw strength from your faith. The battles may not get easier, but you will grow stronger. And in every struggle, you have the opportunity to grow closer to God, to deepen your faith, and to inspire others by your example. Now, I leave you with this thought: Padre Pio didn't seek out his battles, but he didn't shy away from them either. He faced them head-on, not because he was fearless, but because he was faithful. That same strength lives within you. The question is, will you embrace it? If this story has inspired you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And before you go, I invite you to reflect. What battle are you fighting today, and how can Padre Pio's example guide you to victory? If you'd like to learn more about Padre Pio's incredible life, stay tuned for my next video, where we'll explore the miracles and mysteries surrounding his stigmata. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss it. Together, let's continue this journey of faith, discovery, and spiritual growth.